Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to be taking a deep dive into Lululemon's Q3 2024 earnings call today.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to see how these big players are doing.
It really is like, especially Lululemon, they're often considered kind of like the gold standard for athletic wear these days.
Absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see how they're navigating all the ups and downs of retail right now.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump right in. What were some of the big financial takeaways from this quarter?
Well, they hit $2.4 billion in total revenue,
Okay,
which sounds pretty good, right? 9% increase year over year.
not bad. Not bad at all.
But here's the thing.
There's a but coming. I can sense it.
There is a but. A lot of that growth is coming from outside the U.S.
Yeah.
In fact, North America revenue was essentially flat,
Wow.
which is a pretty big difference from what they're seeing internationally, like double-digit growth in a lot of those markets.
Yeah, so flat revenue in North America. That's definitely not the Lululemon growth story that we're used to hearing about
Yeah.
what's going on in the U.S. specifically.
Yeah, so the U.S. market saw zero growth this quarter.
Wow.
It's the second quarter in a row
Right.
with flat sales, and that's in their home market. So
Yeah.
definitely got some attention from analysts.
I bet. So how did Lululemon's leadership team address this slowdown during the earnings call?
So CEO Calvin McDonald, he was pretty upfront about it. He basically said, quote, "In our largest market, North America, we are not satisfied with our performance. The region delivered a 2% increase with flat revenue in the U.S., driven by lower traffic trends." So they're definitely acknowledging the issue,
For sure.
but their solution might surprise you.
Ooh, okay, tell me more. I'm intrigued.
They're going all in on newness.
Newness.
Yeah, McDonald's thinking is that a lack of fresh, exciting new products is a big reason why U.S. sales are slowing down.
Makes sense.
He said, quote, "We are confident that we will return to our historical rate of newness in our assortment by Q1 of fiscal 2025.
So basically they're saying like, hey, if customers aren't loving what we're putting out there, let's give them something new to be excited about. That's a bold strategy, though. Did the analysts buy it?
Not everyone. Some were skeptical about whether newness alone is enough to really drive sustainable growth.
Yeah, especially given like the economic climate these days. It's a little shaky.
Right, exactly.
So what were some of the specific concerns that the analyst brought up during the call?
One analyst, Lorraine Hutchinson from Bank of America, she pointed out, quote, "The U.S. has decelerated for 2 consecutive quarters now, and you're anniversarying tougher compares. How do we get comfort that this newness will actually drive acceleration?"
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, how do they know that this is going to actually lead to more sales?
Exactly, and especially because like last year was such a strong year for them.
Right. Tougher comparisons this time around.
That's a valid concern.
Definitely. Did they offer any specific ways that they're going to track the success of this newness strategy?
They didn't get into concrete metrics during the call, but McDonald did emphasize that they're keeping a close eye on how customers are responding to new product launches and that they're ready to adapt.
Okay, so it sounds like a bit of a wait-and-see approach for now.
Kind of, yeah, and that made some analysts a little nervous.
I can imagine.
Another analyst, Matthew Boss from JP Morgan, he questioned whether focusing so much on newness might actually end up overshadowing some of Lululemon's core strengths.
Okay.
He asked, quote, "As we think about the strategy to reinvigorate the U.S. business with newness, how are you balancing this against your core franchise? And what guardrails are in place to ensure that brand heat doesn't get diluted over time?"
Oh, yeah, that's such an important point. It's like you don't want to lose sight of what made you successful in the first place while you're chasing after the next shiny new thing.
Right, it's a delicate balance.
It really is.
Yeah.
For sure. It's interesting that they're, kind of struggling here in the U.S., but then doing so well internationally.
Yeah, it's a really different picture when you look outside of North America.
Okay, so tell me more about that. What's working for them internationally?
Well, their international revenue was up big time. 39% increase in China
Whoa.
and 27% in the rest of the world.
Wow, they're killing it over there. So what do you think is driving that success?
I mean, it's a bunch of things. They've been really strategic about opening new stores in key international markets.
Makes sense.
And it seems like their brand is just really resonating with people outside the U.S.
Yeah, it's like that athleisure lifestyle is catching on everywhere.
Totally. And they've also been smart about tailoring their marketing to different cultures.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Like in China, their Made to Feel campaign has been a huge success.
I've heard about that. What is it about that campaign that works so well in China?
Well, it really emphasizes the emotional and mental benefits of exercise and well-being,
Okay.
which actually aligns really well with the Chinese government's Healthy China 2030 initiative.
Wow, so they're like tapping into this bigger cultural trend.
Exactly.
Super smart. So we've got this kind of tale of two markets going on right now. International growth is booming, but the U.S. is a question mark. With all the talk about newness, what did the analysts have to say about the broader retail landscape?
There was definitely a sense of caution from the analysts.
Right.
A lot of them brought up that consumer spending is becoming more and more selective.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Inflation is still a thing.
Right. And like when the price of groceries is going up,
Yeah.
people might think twice about buying, a new pair of leggings.
Exactly. Got to prioritize those essentials.
Totally. And then on top of that, there's just more competition in the athleisure space these days.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like Nike, Adidas, even Gap are all trying to grab market share.
Yeah, so it's not just about getting U.S. customers excited about Lululemon anymore.
Right.
It's about convincing them that Lululemon is the best choice out there.
Exactly. And that kind of brings us back to the whole newness question,
Yeah.
Can they really keep churning out enough new stuff to stay ahead of the game and keep customers coming back for more?
It's a good question. I guess only time will tell if that strategy really pays off.
Hmm. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about their guidance for next quarter. What are they projecting for Q4?
Okay, so for revenue, they're expecting somewhere between $3.475 billion and $3.51 billion,
Okay.
which would be growth of 8% to 10% year over year.
That's not bad. But wait, didn't they say something about Q4 having an extra week this year?
You're right, they did.
So what does the growth rate look like if you take that extra week out of the equation?
Yeah, so if you adjust for the extra week, they're actually projecting growth of 3% to 4%.
Okay, so that's a much more modest number.
Definitely.
It kind of suggests that they aren't expecting a huge turnaround in the U.S. market just yet.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. They're also predicting a slight decrease in their gross margin.
Interesting. Why is that?
Well, they're saying it's because of increased investments in growth initiatives
Okay.
and also because of that new distribution center they're building. Right, so they're putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to expanding and supporting all this newness.
Yeah, for sure. But it does mean that their profitability could take a hit if sales don't pick up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Analysts are going to be keeping a close eye on those margins for sure. So overall, it seems like kind of a mixed bag for Lululemon's Q4 outlook. You've got solid international growth, continued investments in the business, but still some uncertainty about whether they can get things moving in the U.S.
Yeah, I think that's a poor assessment.
And, it sets the stage for what I imagine is going to be a pretty closely watched fourth quarter.
Oh, definitely. Analysts are going to be looking for any sign that this newness strategy is actually working.
And whether they can handle all the ups and downs of retail right now,
For sure.
it's a roller coaster ride out there. It's been quite the ride, hasn't it? Like you see those amazing international numbers, but then you've got these lingering questions about the U.S.
Exactly. It really does make you wonder what's in store for them in Q4.
Yeah, like can they really turn things around in the U.S.? Will this whole newness strategy actually work?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's one thing to have all these cool new products, but it's another to actually convince people to buy them.
Especially with all this talk about a recession, people might be hesitant to spend money on things they don't absolutely need.
Oh, for sure. Like if you're worried about your job or the economy, those discretionary purchases are probably the first to go.
Exactly. So it seems like Lululemon's success in Q4 might not just depend on, having the right products.
Right. There are all these external factors too.
Yeah, like what's happening with the economy overall and how confident consumers are feeling.
Exactly. It's a whole bunch of things all coming together.
But you know what struck me during this earnings call?
What's that?
Lululemon seemed so optimistic.
Yeah, they did have a lot of confidence, didn't they?
Like even with all the challenges in the U.S., they seem pretty sure that they can keep growing in the long run.
Yeah, I think that confidence probably comes from their history.
What do you mean?
Well, they've been really good at innovating and adapting to change over the years.
That's true. Just look at how well they're doing internationally.
Exactly. And remember that share buyback program they announced?
Yeah, the one for $1 billion.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong signal that they believe in the company's future.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're not just surviving, we're thriving.
Exactly. But, we can't ignore the fact that there are still some big questions looming as we head into Q4.
Likewise.
Well, will U.S. customers really respond to this newness push? Can Lululemon keep those premium prices when everyone's watching their wallets? And how are they going to handle all the supply chain issues that are happening globally?
So many questions.
I know, right? I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, the next earnings call will definitely be interesting.
For sure.
But, no matter what happens, I think it's safe to say that Lululemon is a company that likes to take risks,
Oh, absolutely. They're not afraid to try new things.
and they're always pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly.
Which is why they're such a fascinating company to follow.
So what do you think, listeners? Will Lululemon's bet on newness pay off? Or will they need to come up with a new game plan? What are you most curious to see happen in Q4? Let us know. And if you happen to be shopping at Lululemon anytime soon, keep an eye out for that newness they keep talking about.
Yeah.
We always love to hear what you're seeing out there in the retail world. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay stretchy.